No, thus saith the Lord, you may not murder babies. Thus saith the Lord, you may not cut off little kids' genitals. Thus saith the Lord, we will ban pornography. People are hungry for that because we are tired of the decay in our society. So yes, people are hungry for it.
Are they?
Oh yeah. Okay, if we're not created in God's image, where do human rights come from?
It comes from consensus.
Okay.
Most people believe that we have human rights, therefore we do.
Okay, that's great. Now, Ben, if we were to all come to a consensus as a society and say that black people are 3/5 of a person, let's say, would that be true?
What does that have to do with what I just said?
You said that moral worth. Listen, Ben, I'll tell you. We as a society say that black people are not fully people. They're not really persons. And so therefore we can do whatever we want with them. You're using the same logic that slavers use.
But I'm not. That's the thing.
How are you not?
How am I not? Because we're not talking about slavery.
We're talking about who determines moral worth. I'm saying it's God. You're saying it's society.
The best you can do is like modernize Bible thumping. Why should people believe you?
Because I think there's actually a real taste for modernizing Bible thumping. All right, what's your name?
Hey, my name's Ben.
Ben, my name's Joshua. Nice to meet you, Ben. I appreciate you shaking my hand. That's a sign of honor.
I guess so.
It is. No, it is, because we disagree, I'm sure.
Yeah, so you talk a lot about like,
You said Ben, I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's right.
Ben.
So you talk a lot about why abortion is morally wrong and all this other stuff, but like, if that's the case, then why should, even if it is morally wrong, why should the mother still carry a baby to term? You know what I mean? Like, you're giving all these negative reasons why an abortion shouldn't happen, sure, but that doesn't mean that that baby should be carried to term regardless. You know what I mean? Like, why should someone feel the need to have a child?
So, yeah, I would say it really boils down to all humans deserve human rights. And you can see the top line of my sign here says Christ is King. That means his word is law. Do you know the 10 Commandments?
Yeah, but I mean, even then, the 10 Commandments were before Christ in the Bible. And it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Wait, let me answer your question, then you can come to it. I was getting at an answer with what I was saying.
Yeah.
The 6th commandment says, "Thou shalt not murder."
Yeah.
And so abortion is the intentional taking of an innocent human life. We call that murder. And so God says don't do it. And the land that practices child sacrifice, which is what this is, it's sacrificing your children to gain economic gain, comfort, different things like that. And so the people that practice child sacrifice, God turns his face against and will be cursed. So that's the high level reason. Now we can talk about all of the horrible societal effects of abortion, but that's the high level reason. And then I'll let you go.
Okay. I mean, well, again, like that's a great moral, like that's a great like up high reason.
Yeah.
But that's not going to convince anybody not to abort their baby. So why pursue that line of reasoning for it?
So, were you here a few minutes ago when I was talking to the other Ahmad? Okay. So we got all into the weeds, into the philosophy, the theology, the science, and that's where I went first. But you came up and
why do you think abortions happen then? In your own words, why do you think abortions happen?
The vast 95% are elective abortions, which are just birth control. So a woman slept with somebody who they didn't intend to marry, and so they wanted to not carry the baby to term and take care of the child that they created, and so they murder it. And so that's 95%. Now there are 5% that happen for these, tragic reasons, whether that's rape, incest, life, all these different things. But the 95%, in fact, what I would like to ask you is, could we agree that the 95% of women who are getting elective abortions should not be permitted to just use murdering a baby as a form of birth control?
No, I don't think that it's necessarily bad. That's my point, is that you can say that it's murder, but I don't agree with you for a multitude of reasons. And even if you say it is, like, that's not going to convince any of these women not to abort their children.
It will.
No, it won't.
I have personally...
Why is abortion still a thing?
Yeah, so I have personally convinced many women not to have abortions. And I've got other friends who work outside of abortion mills who have successfully prevented abortions and then walked that woman through the birth of her child and supported her the entire way. I had a buddy... Yeah, it's beautiful. I had a buddy who he actually held in his arms recently a baby from a mother that he was in front of an abortion clinic and begged her not to go murder her child. She broke down in tears and said, "I don't want to do this, but I can't afford it." He said, "We'll help you." And so they helped him. And then just a few weeks ago, he held that baby in his arms, the baby that she would have murdered.
Yeah, but how is it murder?
Because it's the intentional taking of an innocent human life.
Okay.
That's what murder is. Should murder be legal? I'll ask you that. Should murder be legal?
Well, but abortion isn't murder. They're two separate things.
Okay,
you can't just say like, oh, because it said something in the Bible that these are the same thing.
Gotcha,
They're
gotcha.
not.
So you're saying abortion isn't murder?
No,
okay.
it's not.
Okay, so I would define murder as the intentional taking of an innocent human life. Would you agree with that? Let's start there. See if we can find common ground.
Well, obviously, the next thing you're going to say is like, you're just using that to be
I'm not trying to. This isn't a gotcha. We're having a discussion. I want to know what you think is murder because you said it's not murder. So I'm trying to see if we have common ground on what murder is. So I would say it's the intentional taking of an innocent human life. Would you agree with that for a definition of murder? We can go to the next thing.
I would say unlawful taking of a human life. That's what murder is.
Okay.
People kill each other all the time.
Okay.
You know?
So the unlawful taking. So you're saying that the law is what dictates if it's murder or not. It's not.
It's a mix of the law and as well as like cultural perception around it. You know what I mean?
So if we pass the law,
what I'm trying to say is that you pursuing this line of reasoning of like just moral browbeating people about abortion isn't going to convince them to not get abortions. You know what I mean? You might convince one person, but you're not going to convince a majority of these women to not get abortions. So why use this line of reasoning?
You'll be surprised how many people are convicted and convinced by this line of reasoning, by understanding that what I'm doing is actually murdering a child. Because what they've been taught is that it's not a child.
But is anyone here convinced by it? I don't really think so. Like, if you were to ask this crowd around us if they've been convinced by you just by just saying to them, oh, don't you get that you're committing murder over and over again? They're going to say no.
But that's not what I did. I had a long conversation that got into the weeds of when life begins, and that's the question.
Yeah, and then he still disagreed with you.
Right.
So
But we post these online and millions of people see them, and then they do get their
So you're just here to clip farm, is what you're telling me.
Okay, clip farm, no. Convince large numbers of people that we should stop aborting babies, yes.
Well, like also, like none of these ideas are yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not super original. I read the Bible and I do what God says. So that's where my ideas come from.
Yeah, but like
how do you say about when life begins?
Yeah, I think that's important. Ben, can we agree that the essential question at hand about abortion is when does life begin? Because if it's a human life, then it deserves human rights, right? So the question is, when does it begin? Can we agree with that? That's the question at hand. When does human life begin and when do we bestow human rights? Is that fair? I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from here, Ben.
Well, I'm not coming at it from like, oh, let's decide. What I'm saying is that the way you're talking about abortion and the way that I'm just trying to have a discussion with you, to reason with you. So I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from so I can, right.
Because wait, Ben, I'm trying to, people who come up to the mic, I want to know what their views are, and I want to try to have a discussion with them to try to bring them over to my side. So I'm trying to figure out, what do you actually believe? When do you believe little babies in the womb deserve human rights? And then we can maybe have a discussion from there. But you're just saying,
Well, why do you think they deserve human rights in the first place?
Yeah, because God says so, because they're made in God's image.
In 1 Timothy 4:8, the Apostle Paul tells us that physical training is indeed valuable for the Christian life. And while physical fitness is not the most important thing in the Christian life, it is still of great importance, particularly for men. Why? Because God has called you to protect and to provide. Men, you are called to be protectors. Therefore, God is calling you to be strong, spiritually, emotionally, and yes, even physically. Physical fitness is also important because God has called you to provide. Your family needs you to live a long, healthy life. So, get strong and stay fit with Mount Athos. They are a Christian fitness company that uses some of the best natural ingredients. So I've personally been using their supplements for 6 months now, and I'll tell you right now, I am not going back. They are my new supplement brand. So, stop giving your money to pagan fitness brands that can't even tell the difference between men and women. Join Mount Athos in creating the next generation of health, strength, and spiritual vitality. Visit athosperform.com/reformation. And don't forget to use code reformation for an exclusive discount today.
Isn't that kind of like a circular argument though? You know what I mean?
No.
How is it not?
Human beings deserve human rights. A circular argument would be human beings deserve human rights because they're human beings.
Right.
I'm saying human beings deserve human rights because they were created in God's image and are therefore inherently valuable and of moral worth.
But what if we weren't created in God's image? Then we aren't moral or we don't deserve rights?
Correct.
Okay. But like that's not true.
Can I offer a different perspective?
You can come up to the mic. We just want to make sure that we're keeping it respectful for that. But I would like to hear from you. That guy's next in line if you want to go over there. So this is super key. I'm sorry, what did I just say? I got off track.
Well, I guess what I'm really trying to say here is like, why should anyone care about these issues that you're talking about? You know, why should they see
Okay.
your perspective
I remember
in the
what you
first
said.
place?
This is important. You said that what if we're not created in God's image? And then you said, do we not deserve human rights? And I said, that is absolutely correct. If there is no God and we're not created in his image, then we are just, as Data said from Star Trek: The Next Generation, we're just ugly bags of mostly water. That's what we are apart from God. But if God is true and real, the triune God of Scripture, and he really did create us in his image, then we have human rights. Otherwise, we're just descended from single-cell organisms who kind of got some brains and figured out how to put a society together, but there's no such thing as good or evil.
Well, like, again, like, you know, quoting a Star Trek character isn't evidence. You know what I mean?
I was saying that according to your worldview, all we are is just ugly bags of mostly water
But when
without
did
God.
I say that?
I'm not saying, if you're saying that there is no God and we're not created in his image, that's what you're saying.
But it's not. Because I obviously believe in human rights, or I wouldn't be up here talking to you.
I know,
about
but what
it.
I'm saying is that's inconsistent. You have no way to account for
How am I
human
being
rights.
inconsistent, though?
Okay, I'm glad you're asking the right questions, Ben. Okay, if we're not created in God's image, where do human rights come from?
It comes from consensus.
Okay,
Most people believe that we have human rights, therefore we do.
Okay, that's great. Now, Ben, if I were to say that, if we were to all come to a consensus as a society and say that black people are 3/5 of a person, let's say, would that be true?
What does that have to do with what I just said?
You said
You're
that
just
moral
trying-
worth. Listen, Ben, I'll tell you. You asked
See,
the question.
now we're talking about
Ben, you asked the question. Let me answer. Okay, Ben, you said, what does that have to do with it? It has everything to do with it because you're saying that moral worth comes from consensus. That's what you just said. And so if we come to a consensus that black people are just 3/5 of a person, does that make it true?
No, I said human rights come from consensus,
I know.
not moral worth.
Okay,
And
okay,
even
fine,
then,
that's
like,
fine. Human rights.
what is like the 3/5 rule or slavery have to do with what I just said? We're not talking about that. We're talking about abortion.
So we're talking about consensus. We're talking about when human beings get rights. We're talking about human rights. Now, and who gets to give them to him, all right? So you're saying we as a society are the ones who bestow human rights, and we decide when babies can be killed. That's what the slavers thought too. We as a society say that black people are not fully people. They're not really persons. And so therefore we can do whatever we want with them. You're using the same logic that slavers use.
But I'm not. That's the thing.
How are you not?
How am I not? Because we're not talking about slavery.
We're talking about who determines moral worth. I'm saying it's God, you're saying it's society. But if society does, then we could decide tomorrow that, you know what, in fact, 3-year-olds and under can be murdered because they really kind of, they're a drag on society. They make women, women's lives really difficult. So we can murder 3-year-olds.
You're saying that just to sidestep the question of why would people do this in the first place? Because we're talking about abortion.
Why would people enslave black people?
Why would people do it? Why would people get an abortion in the first place? Then?
Yeah, because they made a mistake, and now they're using it as birth control. They're murdering their child as a form of birth control.
You know, you say that, but like
That's
you don't give them
95%.
right, and I understand that, but you're not giving people a viable alternative to that.
Yeah, the viable.
You know, why
yeah.
should they carry that child to term? And you just say, because it's the morally righteous thing to do.
No,
but that's not convincing
It's
anybody.
not even just morally righteous. Do you agree that we should have laws against murder, Ben?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Okay,
but
okay.
like, you're
you
just
said yes.
taking things I say, and then you're kind of like just be doing this whataboutism stuff.
Okay, so
and it
this
doesn't
is
apply.
Listen, I'm not doing a whataboutism.
Well, you just did with the whole slavery thing.
That's
What
not
was
a
that
whatabout.
tangent? That is a whataboutism thing.
That's a line of reasoning meant to demonstrate your inconsistency.
No, it's not.
That's how debates work. Is that you provide examples?
But how have I been inconsistent?
Because you're saying that society can decide that we should murder babies, but society
What
can't
I'm
decide
saying
that we can
is that-
enslave black people.
What I'm saying is that we're trying to go. You're saying that like, oh, abortion is happening for this reason. But what I'm asking you is, why do you really think it's happening? Why aren't people? You know, you can say as many times as you want.
Okay.
That, abortion is murder, but that doesn't make it true. And when you bring like something like God into it, all you're saying is that I have a moral argument, not one based in physical reality.
All laws are rooted in morality. Every single law on
laws
the
are
books.
rooted in reality.
Okay. Yeah, every single law is rooted in morality. That's why we have laws. Where do you think laws come from? Okay, if they're not rooted in morality, what do you mean they're rooted in reality? Yes, they're rooted in reality, a reality that's rooted and grounded in morality. Slavery was legal. Yes, that's the point. That's what I was saying. Slavery Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm not saying that there isn't a difference between legality and morality. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that the concept of law itself didn't arise from a moral position like you're saying.
It did. It came from the 10 Commandments.
No, it didn't.
So
Okay, so then why did other civilizations that weren't Christian have laws?
Because God has written his perfect law on the hearts of man. Romans 1 says that he has revealed himself to all human beings so that everyone who's created in his image, so therefore they have a conscience. So even people who don't believe in God they're still created in his image whether they like it or not. So they have a conscience. They can understand good and evil. But Romans 1 says they suppress the truth in unrighteousness. And that's key. So, yeah, I think we're kind of going around in circles. It seems like you're not wanting to grasp the fact that if there is no God, there is no objective standard of morality, and therefore you can't tell
But there is
anyone
an
they're wrong.
objective standard of morality across different people groups. You know what I mean? There is no objective standard of morality across different people groups.
I'm saying there is.
But there isn't.
You can
Why
say
do people
that.
on the other side of the world have different opinions than me then? Why do they have different laws, different customs, all this other thing? That's not an accident.
Because they're wrong.
And they're not wrong. How is someone in China wrong for what they believe? How is someone in
Okay,
South
that's a good
Korea
question,
wrong
Ben.
for what
Is
they
it wrong
believe?
to push gays off of building tops?
What does that have to do with what I just said, though?
Ben,
Like, you can't just say that, like, oh...
You just said that they're not wrong.
No. I just acknowledge the reality that different people have different moral standards, and now you're saying that I'm okay with, murdering people.
I'm
That's
not.
not the same
I
thing.
didn't say that you
How
were
is that
okay
the same
with it.
thing?
Listen, I didn't say that you were okay with it. I said I asked you a question. Do you think it's wrong to push gays off of rooftops?
Yeah, but I
Okay,
mean, obviously I do, but what does that have to do with what I said?
All right, real quick, they want us to move the mic forward a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, excuse me. Got it back.
If you just said they're not wrong, their
No,
moral
I
system.
I just said it is wrong, but they wouldn't consider it wrong. You know what I mean?
So you're saying they are objectively wrong.
It's not objective.
You
That's the
but
thing.
you just said that they're wrong.
I think they're wrong, but
But they're not
there's
actually
different-
wrong.
Yeah, it's different. Listen, what I'm trying to say is that different all right, do you agree that different cultures have different moral standards?
Absolutely, and some are wrong.
Okay.
Some are very wrong. Any culture that contradicts the living and active Word of God is wrong. The culture
Okay.
that
Even if that is true, what you're saying,
Hmm.
that it contradicts God or whatever, what argument do you have to convince these people to live in God's way?
yeah, I give them the gospel. The good
Yeah, but
news.
what if that doesn't convince them?
It's not my job to convince. I am a messenger. I'm tasked with confronting, and in fact, that's what it says in 1 Timothy, I think. No, that's wrong. I need to have that address memorized. But no, 1 Corinthians, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
But the weapons, what the New Testament tells us is the weapons of my warfare are not of this world, but they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We attack and demolish every argument that raises itself up against the knowledge of Christ. So that's what I do. I come out and I attack anything that raises itself up against the knowledge of Christ, who is King, and then I demolish it and say, guess what? There's good news. Christ rescued you from your perverse thinking and your idols and your sin. He rescued you, and now he's inviting you into the kingdom of heaven. And so that's the beautiful good news. That's ultimately what convinces people. But so what I've done here is I've demonstrated that your worldview is inconsistent.
No, it's not.
Okay, you can
How
think
have you
that.
demonstrated that? How have you demonstrated that?
Most of my lines of questioning have served to
Then you
demonstrate.
don't understand my worldview, so how have you dismantled it?
Okay, let me just ask you this question. Do you believe that there is such a thing as good and evil?
Yes.
Where does that come from?
Where does that come from? It comes from my own understanding of the world.
So then it's not objectively good. You are talking about your opinions and your feelings. I'm talking
Isn't
about
that what you're talking about
No,
too? Yes,
I'm talking
it
about
is.
God who he gives his law. God's word is law, and he's the one who tells us what's good and evil, objectively. And you're saying it's up to my feelings.
But
so
he
it's
doesn't
subjective.
tell us how to feel objectively.
No, but he tells us what his law
then
is.
we don't have free will. Is that what you're saying? We don't have free will?
No, we do have free will. I'm telling you
Yeah,
what God says
exactly.
about good and evil. He's the one who defines it, not us and our feelings. So you
Yeah,
have
how do we know he's right?
Well, we will find out on Judgment Day. But I'm saying
On Judgment Day that's never coming.
what?
Yeah, like what if Judgment Day never happens then?
What does God think about immigrants? He loves immigrants. Yeah. That doesn't mean that we have to have open borders, but he loves immigrants.
I mean, if you're here to convince people to your worldview, especially as like a college Republican, and the best you can do is like modernized Bible thumping, why should people believe you?
Because I think there's actually a real taste for modernizing Bible thumping. I'll tell you why.
No, there isn't.
There actually is. Because what we've seen is our society has degraded and decayed for the last 2 decades, to the point where literally we've been chopping off the genitals of little kids. People have been raised in that society and they're tired of it. And they're tired of politicians just using mealy-mouthed reasoning to make their laws. We're ready to return to a point where we say, no, thus saith the Lord, you may not murder babies. Thus saith the Lord, you may not cut up little kids' genitals. Thus saith the Lord, we will ban pornography. People are hungry for that because we are tired of the decay in our society. So yes, people are hungry for it.
Are they?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't see it.
Problem with transgender surgeries when you're okay with intersex children being mutilated without their consent.
I'm not. You can come up to the mic. I'm going to finish with Ben here.
You know, it's like, I don't think that this is what I'm really trying to say is that, like, you know, you can have your little stand there.
Yep.
And you can try to browbeat people with the Bible.
Not
but that's
browbeating.
not gonna. It is browbeating.
We had a discussion, man. How is that browbeating? I have an opinion.
It's not a discussion when you don't acknowledge what I'm trying to tell you,
I've been
and then
trying.
you distort what I'm saying.
Listen, I'm not distorting your saying. I'm
you
revealing
are.
to you the
No,
inconsistencies in your own
no,
worldview.
no,
All right, let's
you are.
we'll call it there. I think.
And it's like, you know, why should anyone become a college Republican if this is all you're going to do? You're not convincing anybody. That's my point.
All right. Well, I think I am convincing a lot of
if
people.
you just
Ben.
want to clip farm and post it on Instagram, and then be like, oh, another college student destroyed by moral, by Bible thumping or whatever you want to call it. If you're here to get likes, why are you here?
I'm here to convince people of the truth and to proclaim the
but
gospel of Jesus
you're
Christ.
not convincing anyone that doesn't already agree with you. So what's the point?
It's okay if you think that. We'll just agree to disagree, Ben. Let's
Okay.
call it there. All right.